How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Omaha Outlook. My name is Luke Meyer, and I'm here with Duncan Helms.
Hello.
So we're going to be getting into a little bit of weekend predictions here. We just have a few series/tournaments that we found interesting. This will likely be a bit briefer than our other content, which usually spans for quite a while. But this time, I think we'll probably just do some quick overlook on the series, just some players who are looking good, kind of look out for some trends each team has been on, whether
Mhm.
these games are must win or not. So we'll kind of get into that from there.
Yep. Series we're going to be covering this time. We're going to be talking about Clemson, South Carolina, Southern Miss, and TCU, and then the Astros Foundation College Classic down there in Houston this weekend, starting tomorrow. Our beloved Mississippi State is there. But that's not why we're talking about it. It is a very, very good tournament.
Yeah, it's a very
Um,
interesting
it's
tournament.
a very interesting
A lot of
tournament.
implications on the line. A lot of teams with a lot to prove are going to be playing
Yeah,
in that tournament. So
absolutely. I believe we're going to get started with Clemson versus South Carolina, which I didn't know this is apparently the best rivalry in college baseball. If you ask the fans of those teams, if you ask the teams themselves, they don't like each other very much. It doesn't surprise me. In-state rivalry, two big colleges, two good baseball programs, does not surprise me at all. Then they
mhm,
play each other in anything. They don't like each other. So
for sure.
this should be a
Uh,
very fun series.
yeah, for sure. I knew that there's a big rivalry going on into it. I
Mm-hmm.
think greatest rivalry or the best rivalry, is that what it was? The
Yeah,
best
they said
rivalry
it
in
was the best
college
rivalry in
baseball.
college baseball. I don't
Is it
think there was a
your
name
official?
for it.
I was going to say, is that kind of the functioning name for it? Because that's kind of what I've heard it
I
referred to
think
as.
so. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, one note I
Um,
did have about this series, real quick, is it is played in three venues over the course of the weekend.
yeah,
So Friday will be at Clemson. Saturday will be in Greenville, um, and then Sunday will be in at South Carolina. Oh my
Columbia.
God, Columbia. Yes. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get into it.
For sure. This one will be a little bit. The reason we start off with this one is just because it's a little bit briefer, just
Yep.
because South Carolina is a big question mark for us. Going really kind of back on into them, and I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Is
Mm-hmm.
that right now they're 9-0 overall. They haven't lost a game. They haven't dropped anything like that. But a lot of that, I guess, could be summed up to, I guess, lack of competition that they've played thus far.
Mm-hmm.
I've got their schedule pulled up here. They opened up the season 3 games versus Sacred Heart. Well, all three of those were wins. Winthrop for win versus them, a win versus Queens, North Carolina, and another sweep of Milwaukee, followed up by Gardner Webb. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, none of those are going to be, I guess, top 25 teams or
No.
anything of that sort, or any I guess traditional baseball powerhouses onto there. So obviously, they've had dominant wins. The closest they've had thus far looks like a 2-run game. Outside of that, most of the other ones are pretty significant blowouts from there. So
Yeah.
this is going to be an interesting weekend for South Carolina, just because it's going to be one of the first times they really get tested. This is, and especially having to play their big rival this early in the season. It's going to be interesting to see, at least.
Yeah, for sure. South Carolina is not a team we've really talked about at all this season. For a good reason. They weren't ranked within D1 Baseball's preseason top 25. Which we've mentioned this before about teams. If a team is not in the top 25, that doesn't mean they're bad. It just speaks to how talented the sport is nowadays and how many good teams there are that could slot in somewhere. Like I said, South Carolina, I'm not going to say they can't control their competition because they do make the schedule, but you have to just go out there and beat who you play. And 9
For
and
sure.
0 is, and with 3 games not even going all 9 because of run rules, that's pretty much all you can ask for. The bats look good. The pitching looks solid. Um, yeah. Speaking of pitching, they are missing a guy this year for the second straight year. The Eli Jersenbeck. They expected
Mm,
to have him back. He missed the end of the 23 season and all of 24 with Tommy John. They expected him to come back this year, and he had a stress fracture, which will keep him out for the rest of the year. He's having surgery pretty soon, early March. In 16 games with 3 starts as a freshman, he had a 2.84 ERA. Not the biggest loss. It's not a guy they had last year, and they were still pretty good. but it's someone that they are missing.
I think one of the things is when you're building up your staff, your signing rules going into the season. I think obviously somebody who is a freshman, he said a 2.84 ERA,
Yep.
and he said he had a handful of starts. I think he's going to be somebody who you had slotted into a particular spot in your rotation, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be a starter or a long relief guy, so it's just somewhere in the bullpen. Now all of a sudden the plans are axed almost immediately going on into the season. So
Yeah.
now you're asking guys who may not necessarily have been prepping for a certain role, whether that be some type of long reliever, some type of
Yeah.
closer, starter, anything like that. Now they're going to have to step up and really show it. And like we said, with that in mind, they haven't really had a team to test their mettle against. So not only is
No.
that going to be a hole to fill just in general, but it's going to be a hole to fill against your biggest rival in your first test of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. In their first 9 games, they haven't really needed to lean on depth of talent. Like we're talking about, they played 1 game away from home, and it was in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is not that far from Columbia. I actually had some family up there, but yeah, they stayed within the state. They didn't. They still will not leave the state of South Carolina yet. If 8 games at home, 1 away game in Rock Hill, and then going to be playing away at Clemson, neutral in Greenville, and then home in Columbia again. So
Oh my gosh, yeah, they don't. I'm looking at
yeah,
their schedule right now. They do not leave South Carolina until March 21st.
that's insane.
Yeah, they are playing in the state of South Carolina. They're doing a full tour of that place.
Yeah, they
Um,
they they like playing at home, but as they move into the rest of the season, the depth is gonna get tested. We're gonna see what this team's made of, and missing a guy like Jerson Beck, even if he wasn't necessarily going to be a weekend starter, wasn't going to be like a big, massive part of that rotation. It's still somebody that you expected to have, who's a talented player, and to lose somebody immediately for the season is just really really tough.
and one thing I do want to talk about here too,
Mm-hmm.
looking at their schedule, is even after this next weekend, really talking about as they get into the how much depth they're going to need. Just looking at some of their weekend series upcoming. First, after Clemson, the first one in SEC play is Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
It's currently a top 16 team. They're currently red hot.
Yep.
Obviously, that could change between now and then, but as of right now, they look like a very formidable team.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to go play Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
then Tennessee, then Mississippi State, then A&M, then Ole Miss, then Kentucky, then Florida, Auburn, and
Yeah,
LSU.
that's just
I mean,
SEC baseball, baby. That's tough.
they
Also,
have
they
they have.
play between Arkansas and Tennessee. They play UNC in the midweek, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
real
I
tough.
didn't even do that.
UNC is a
So it's
very good team.
of the teams I just listed, the only ones that were unranked was it's Auburn and Kentucky. And the bat, everyone knows how hot the Bat Cats can get, so don't ever count them out.
Yeah.
They remind us anytime they have success, the Bat Cats always seem to find their way onto my social media feed.
Oh yeah, and I mean Auburn also talented team. SEC baseball is going to test everybody. South Carolina is a program you expect to be pretty good. It'll be a question of how good they can be, but in this matchup against Clemson this weekend, they're really going to get tested for the first time. And this is a Clemson team that at the start of the year, I had a lot to say about them. If you'll allow me to pull up my Clemson notes real quick, I can. Oh, gracious! I
Oh, yeah,
am closing out
definitely.
everything. I'm not. What?
I can go ahead and
Yeah,
touch on a
please,
little bit while
please
you get
do,
all that
because
pulled
I
up.
am messing
So
up.
one of the things here is that one of the games I want to highlight, Clemson, they've had a good amount of games played already. Right off the season, they started off that tournament, I believe, in the Shriners Classic with
Yep.
Oklahoma State, Arizona, Ole Miss. They go 2-1 in that stretch. Their only loss coming to Ole Miss via run rule. Um, so kind of looking at the first game there, Oklahoma State, they had a pretty close contest, 6-5 in favor of Clemson. Looks like Oklahoma State jumped out to an early lead, and then Clemson decided to claw their way back. One pitcher we're going to look at here for Clemson is going to be Aiden Knack. He didn't have his best
Yes.
performance ever this game. He went 4 innings, so he had 5 hits, 4 earned runs, a walk, 7 strikeouts, and 5 flyouts. So I think you have a good amount more to say about him.
Yeah, Aiden Knack was a guy I talked about a good bit. He's a sophomore this year. He was D1 baseball's number 4 pitcher in the nation. pitched about 5.5 innings a game as a freshman last year in 15 starts. The biggest problem for Knack is when he gets hit real hard, and that is immediately what happened to start the year. I think it was something like 2 doubles and 3 homers already. It That's his biggest problem. He throws in the zone a lot. He strikes out a ton of guys, but when he gets hit, it gets hit really, really hard. That's his biggest problem. He's a super talented pitcher, still very young. So if he can sort that out as the season goes on, we'll see. But yeah,
He's definitely going to be a fly ball pitcher, to say the
yes,
least, here. Because if you sit here and look just in this game alone, like you said, he gave up a lot of hard contact and such. Nothing that, like any hard singles or anything like that, at least that you listed from there. But he had
mm-hmm.
5 flyouts and 0 groundouts.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big things that you sit there and look, and it's like, okay, so he's going to be dominating kind of inside the zone, maybe trying to make some guys pop up, or just get some lazy fly balls and such. I think that really was on display here at Oklahoma State.
Yeah. I guess we could go ahead and get into the potential rotations for the teams this weekend. As
Okay,
we
go
start
ahead.
talking about some players. On Friday, neither team has actually posted a rotation that I could find yet. This is February 27th at 7:40 Eastern, so they'll likely post tomorrow. But for each team, it is to start the week. Friday, it will be Aiden Knack versus Dylan Eskew. Ethan Darden for Clemson versus Matthew Becker for South Carolina. Becker has had a good start to the year. 2 starts, 11 in the third inning, 17 strikeouts, no walks, only 2 earned. He looks very solid. And then the Sunday guy for Clemson so far has been Justin Legurnick. And for South Carolina, it'll probably be Jake McCoy, who's also off to a hot start. 2 starts, 9 innings, 3 runs, 17 strikeouts, 4 walks. Only 1 extra base hit allowed, and it was a homer. Yeah, McCoy and Becker are 2 pretty dang good pieces for South Carolina. But talking about Legurnick for Clemson, he's not off to the best start. In 2 starts, 7 2/3 innings, he has an 8.22 ERA, 7 earned on 7 hits, 6 walks, 7 strikeouts, giving up 2 homers, a triple, and a double. He's getting hit pretty hard for Clemson. It's going to be interesting to see how Clemson works this weekend against a good South Carolina team. I mean, I know we said they haven't played anybody yet, but this is a good team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of that, what happened with his ERA, got super inflated because, like I said, they got run ruled versus Ole Miss.
Yeah,
Turns out Legurnick was the starting pitcher for that game. He
does
went one
not
and two
surprise me.
thirds innings and let up 7 earned runs.
Mm,
Um,
it's tough.
so, obviously, I mean, even getting his ERA back down to, we said like 8, getting
Yeah,
that
eight two
ballpark.
two.
I mean, that's 9 times 7 divided by 1.662. So yeah, just in this game, it looks like he was sitting closer to about a 37 ERA.
Yeah. So
Um,
he actually didn't allow. You said he went 1 2/3.
yeah,
So yeah, he went 6 innings, shutout against whoever
yeah.
he played next. So
So it really just seemed like maybe he just had an off
one
game,
bad
and
game.
that's the thing about a lot of these stats. They get super inflated. Just
Mm-hmm.
one bad appearance, and it's all of a sudden your numbers would make you believe that you shouldn't be at this level. But so
Yeah,
obviously this
for
guy is
sure.
very talented.
Yeah.
He's going to be somebody Clemson's going to look to for the series for sure.
Yeah. Speaking about some bats for these two teams. And one more pitcher for Clemson. Drew Titsworth is off to a great start for them. In 2 appearances, 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk. He projected to be their closer at the start of the season. He's been one of their most used pitchers out of the pen. He's actually their 4th most used pitcher. B.J. Bailey's just in front of him. Another guy appeared in 3 games, 6 2/3, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Titsworth has already picked up a save. So the Clemson bullpen is showing up to start the year. Obviously, I could go ahead and start reading South Carolina baseball stats. They have 2 people above a 3.4 ERA. So
Mm-hmm.
they really just, the level of competition makes those stats not mean too much. One bat I want to talk about for South Carolina, he's a bit of a household name, Ethan Petrie. Super,
Mhm.
super talented guy. Off to a hot start this year. 452 average, 564 on base, 806 slug. Struck out 4 times, walked 6 times, hit 2 homers. He's got a triple, 3 doubles, 10 RBIs. I mean, he is lighting it up through 9 games.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah. And for Clemson, Cam Cannarella is a guy super, super talented. Played through a shoulder injury for the majority of last year. Um, wasn't quite up to his standard from his freshman year. Still was an above average bat and a very good defensive center fielder. This year, off to a cold start, 269, 406, 462. Do like to see that he's still getting on base a decent amount, but not to pat myself on the back too much. But Dominic Listy was one of my impact transfers for Clemson when I talked about them at the beginning of the year. Transfer from Indiana State, really good on base guy. Um, Puts the ball in play a ton. He is batting 462, 615 on base, 538 slug to start the year. Walked 8 times, only struck out once. 2 doubles, 13 RBIs, no homers yet. Stolen 2 bases already. That's a very good bat for
Uh,
Clemson to have.
yeah, and like I said, looking to hear to Cam Kennerell, like you said, it's not been. I believe you said that he hasn't been quite off to the, I guess, the most hot start in the world. Is that correct for it?
Yeah, not
I
quite.
mean, just looking at this here versus Arizona, he had 6 at bats, 4 hits, 4 runs, 1 RBI,
There you go.
only on 1 strikeout. So I mean, it's one of those things. Like we said, it's so early in the season that we say guys' stats don't look great. Obviously that could
Mm-hmm.
literally, if you have one great game, your stats can flip flop 180 over the other.
Absolutely.
So we're not reading too much into it. Like you said, this is a super talented Clemson team.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the bats haven't really come alive for them too much yet, but also they haven't been so bad that they've lost them games. If we look over here, I don't think we actually said Clemson's record so far. They're 7-1, so they're off to a pretty good start. And that one loss, like we said, was Ole Miss. So
yeah, for sure.
pretty good
One,
start.
one batter I want to hit too on South Carolina
Mm.
has looked good thus far is Nathan Hall. So if you look over Nathan Hall, he's 39 plate appearances on the year, so he's tied for the most on their team. 433 average, 513 on base, 733 slug to go along with 2 homers. I mean, that, like we said, they haven't played the highest level of competition. However, those are promising numbers. And
Yeah,
for a team that, and I'm assuming this is your consensus as well, that South Carolina is coming into this a good bit of the underdog here.
yeah, for sure. Clemson
He's
is
going to
a
have to step
top
up.
20 team. They're expected to. I wouldn't say they're expected to sweep, but they're expected
No,
to win this series.
it
Also with Hall, he's stolen 4 bases in 4 attempts, so
for sure.
he's looking pretty
And
good.
and kind of look at his batted ball profile. He's kind of a ground ball hitter for sure. He's
Hmm.
about 48% of his batted
Okay.
ball profiles have resulted in ground balls. So it's kind of interesting that he's slugging as well as he is,
For
despite
sure.
having so much on the ground. Maybe a lot of that coming up from some doubles, some homers. So
Hmm.
should we?
Looking like it. Yeah,
He's going to be a big guy. He's going to have to step up for the squad for sure.
for sure. Um, yeah, this is going to be a really fun series. I think. Two teams playing early in the season that don't like each other. We're going to get to see, hopefully, the best baseball both of these teams have played so far this year. ACC versus SEC matchups are always fun, especially in college baseball. Two best conferences in the nation. Like I said, rivalry game. This will be a very, very fun series to watch this weekend.
Yeah, and that's one thing that makes it so unpredictable. The rivalry games. This is
Yeah.
almost feels like one of those games that you don't throw the records out the window, you don't throw the previous stats out the window, but you definitely take into account like there's always going to be some level of hey, anything could happen, and especially
Yep.
whenever you're talking about such an intense rivalry, who knows? Some of these guys could step up. So, for instance, maybe who knows? All of a sudden they get into a tough spot, and then KG Scobie, just grabbing a random
Yeah.
name, hits a tremendous shot, bases clearing double, or something
Yep.
silly like that. So
Anyone can.
it's
Anything can happen.
anything can happen, especially this early in the season. If kind of looking at it, South Carolina, I would, or I guess Clemson, I would favor to probably take 2 games out of this,
Yeah.
taking the series. But I don't think South Carolina is going to get swept by any means. There,
No.
I
Not at
just
all.
think that's purely based off the fact that Clemson is a little bit more battle tested. We
Hmm.
know a little bit more what we're getting with them. Their pitching staff has looked pretty dang solid. Looking at us, they have two guys, two very valuable relievers who can come out of the pen and get stops and get outs
Hmm.
and such. So that would kind of make me lean towards it. And just I think that looking at the batting profile of both of these teams, I think I would just lean a little bit more in favor of Clemson. So it's going to be
Yeah.
a tough, gritty series by any means. I wouldn't expect any run rules here.
Yeah, no, not at all. Even if Clemson takes this series, which I agree, I think Clemson wins 2 out of 3 here. Um, Especially you have your Friday guy going out at home. You always would like to have that advantage on when you're throwing your best pitcher out there. But I don't think any of these games are going to be blowouts by any means. This is going to be close, fun baseball. I think we'll see some good pitching tools. As good as Clemson's pitching staff is, South Carolina has shut people down. I mean, we're talking about a ton of guys that have pitched at least a few innings and have not allowed a run yet.
Mm,
We'll see how that works out against a much better team than the teams they've played so far. But South Carolina is a good, talented team, and this will be a very, very fun series.
for sure.
All
All right, we can
right.
go ahead and kind of move on into our next one here if you'd like. We can.
Yep.
I'm assuming you want to talk about USM TCU. Is that
Yes,
where you're going with it?
Southern Mississippi versus Texas Christian.
For sure.
This is another good series. This is a team in Southern Miss that has come up a very surprising amount. As much as we've done this, not surprising in the way that like I didn't expect them to be good. I didn't know that they were going to be this good to start the year. I mean, we're talking about this is a top 25 matchup immediately. This is a
Mm,
big, big series for both these teams. Southern Miss has quite a few impressive wins. They're coming off a run rule. Not, I don't think it was a run rule, but a big loss to Ole Miss.
you
And
know,
TCU had a tough tourney, but tough tourney last weekend. But they are a good team. They swept UCSD in 4 games. They're coming off a win against Tarleton State, turned it around, and now we see a three game series of two top 25 teams. This will be a very good one.
yeah. So I'll hit a little bit on USM, and really what I want to highlight out of their two most recent games they played, two I guess now top 25 matchups. They played Mississippi State and they played Ole Miss,
Hmm.
and the way that these games went is almost entirely different from there, and it's kind of a unique thing. So Mississippi State, as you guys probably know, is that they went out there and they absolutely shut the Bulldogs down. They only allowed 4 hits, all of them were singles. I think 3 walks,
Yeah.
something to that effect. Their pitching just came out, pitched to Jim. Colby Allen looked fantastic out there.
Hmm.
Um, he looked tremendous. He's going to be one of their best bullpen guys coming out. He just came out there, shut him down, and
Yeah.
just went from there. And their bullpen came in and did more of the same from there.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
They also.
I,
Oh, go ahead.
you're
Go
good.
ahead.
I just want to say Southern Miss's pitching is good.
Yes.
They have 2 shutouts already this year. They hold teams to under 5 runs most of the time. Like they allowed 6 runs in 10 innings against Louisiana Lafayette. Besides that, they've allowed more than that once, and that was Ole Miss just now. And they've thrown a ton of pitching recently. Like we said, they went out and threw some of their best against State. They had a weekend series against Louisiana Tech, which they went 2 out of 3. The pitching just kind of ran out on them. But now they're coming back in fully rested, ready to go against a good TCU team. They're going to be throwing everybody.
Oh, for sure. And the one thing I want to just a little bit more about the Mississippi State game here
Hmm.
is that they only scored 3 runs.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, they had a little bit of struggles in the first part. Mississippi State's bullpen comes out and they do similar to they just go out there and they shut them down. So it's 3-0. It's a low scoring game. They rely heavily on their pitching and such. Now, if you go out there and you contrast that versus Ole Miss,
Hmm.
it's an entirely different profile if you sit there and look. Um, so that game went 15-8 in favor of Ole Miss. Just an absolute offensive slugfest. I think I have it here. Let me double check before I tell a fib. One, two, three, four, five, 8 pitchers USM had to use
Whew.
to get out of this game.
Jeez.
Um, so compare that over into where their bullpen just came out there and absolutely shut Mississippi State down. It's a
Hmm.
night and day difference. Obviously, the bats come up a lot more than they did versus Mississippi State. One big thing here too is that they allowed 3 unearned runs in the first inning. So right
Yeah.
off rip, USM did put themselves in the hole, and then from there, it was just an absolute battle. I think both teams hit 4 home runs, if I have this correct. Let me double check that.
Home run derby day.
Yeah, I was curious. I mean, it was, yeah, both teams hit 4 home runs. So it was just both teams slugging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So
Yeah.
it's going to be kind of interesting to see what approach or how what USM team shows up to play TCU.
Hmm.
As of right now, I think I'd be leaning more towards, hey, they're going to show up the Mississippi State version of them. Hey, their pitching's just going to come out and they're going
Yeah.
to be dominant. Their bats, I mean, they have tremendously talented bats, but maybe not to the extent of, hey, score 8, 9, 10, 15 runs like this previous game went here.
Yeah, for sure. I think Southern Miss's profile as a team is more on the pitching side. I mean, if we look at their pitching, JB Middleton in 2 starts has yet to allow a run. 4 hits, 4 walks, 10 strikeouts. Like I said, no runs, no extra base hits. Hit 2 people, but he is locking it down. Cross Sibley, he is also locking it down. I guess I could also go through the pitching matchups real quick. Southern Miss has released their rotation for the weekend. JB Middleton is starting Friday versus likely Parker Caden for TCU. Cross Sibley is starting Saturday versus likely Tommy Lepore for TCU. And then Sunday is listed as TBD for Southern Miss. But Matthew Adams has started 2 games, gone 9 innings, 9 hits, 12 strikeouts, 3 walks, 3 runs, given up 4 doubles and a homer, but he's looked pretty good. Could also be Colby Allen. I believe that's who started against Mississippi State.
I would look for him to keep coming out of the pen.
Yeah, but I think it'll
That
be
would be my
Adams
guess. Is
to
he's
come
going
out.
to, yeah. So
And that'll be likely
it'll,
against Trevor Baumler for TCU.
mhm. So, and one thing here is too. That's I guess kind of interesting that you have to look at here coming on to their pitching matchups, and I really want to hit on
Mm-hmm.
this because so right after this series right here, they
Mm-hmm.
have obviously 3 games versus TCU, top 25 team. They immediately have Mississippi State on a midweek
Yeah,
afterwards. So it's going to be a rematch from earlier on into the season. And I'm going to be interested to see what they're going to do in their Sunday game as to who they're going to
mm,
throw and what, especially because in my mind, if they have the series locked up, let's say they go out there, they win Friday, Saturday, they have the series locked up. In my opinion, they're saving as many arms as they can for that Tuesday matchup versus Mississippi
yeah,
State. I don't foresee them. Now, granted, now if it comes down like, hey, you know, we have split the series. Sunday's a deciding game. Likely they're going to be throwing a lot more of their arms. Probably care a lot more about that Sunday game as opposed to the actual
for
Mississippi
sure.
State game on Tuesday. So it's going to be really really interesting to see how the series turns out because that'll be so indicative of their next matchup.
Yep, for sure. They do have another guy that has started a game for them. Well, they have 2 more guys that have started game. McCarty English went 1 in the 3rd and gave up 6 runs, only 3 earned. But I'm not going to talk about him much. Graydon Harris, though, in his 1 start, went 5 innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, no runs allowed. So he might be a guy that, like you said, on Sunday, if they want to save Allen, if they want to save Adams potentially, we might see Graydon Harris. Don't know. TBD for good reason, essentially.
For sure. And yeah, just going back on to really looking at some of their previous games, this is like you said, this is a team that's really relied heavily on its pitching, and its bats haven't really gone crazy. And that's not to saying that they're not going out there and scoring runs. I mean, they're scoring a good amount of runs, but it's just the fact that their current profile is a team that's keeping games close
Yep.
while also limiting the other team to runs. The only exception that being to Ole Miss, I would expect that to continue on here
Hmm.
versus TCU. But speaking of the USM bats, we can go ahead and touch base on a few of those guys if
For
you'd
sure.
like. The three that names that I have listed here, uh, Davis Gillespie. There's
Hmm.
the first one I want to talk about here. So he's going to be there. He's their left fielder as of right now. He's 41 plate appearances, batting 353. Has a 390 on base percentage, so he's not drawing the most amount of walks in the world. I think he has one on the year thus far. So he's
Hmm.
pretty much hitting the ball or he's walking back to the dugout. 735 slug though, so he has
He's
three
crushing
homers
it.
already. Yeah, he's smoking that ball. Pair that with 2 doubles, and you got some serious power at the plate for him. His only real weakness, like I said, it's just kind of inability to draw draw walks. Also, a little heavy on the strikeouts for someone who only walked one time. So,
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
guy I want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
I was just looking up and down their lineup. Pretty much all of the guys that have started at least 6 games have all struck out at least 5 times. So we're talking
Yep.
most guys are striking out at least once a game, which isn't the worst thing ever, but you know,
And if
feels
you
a
look at
little
the
high.
number of home runs and such, and
Mm.
there's a lot of power in these
Yeah,
bats here.
for sure.
So like for instance, we're looking at here, Carson Pato. My
Pato, I
apologies
would
for that.
guess.
Yeah, so he got six doubles and he's got two homers on the season.
Hmm.
And that's not like that's going to be their highest number of doubles, but you got other guys on the team four doubles, three doubles, home runs.
Hmm.
So they're really, really kind of banking a ton on the long ball
Yeah.
and hitting with a ton of power, getting a lot of juice in their bats. So I think that may be why a lot of the games are a little bit lower scoring because so many of the runs are coming from the long ball or the deep shot to left center field or anything like that.
Yeah. It kind of leans into they have only 3 qualified hitters, which, by the way, a qualified hitter is 2 plate appearances per game played, and they played at least 75% of the games. Only 3 qualified hitters above 300. Nick Monastere is right below that.
Mm.
Monastere,
Yeah,
whatever.
that's who I want to talk about next.
Yeah, if you want to get into him, then go ahead.
Oh, I was just he was one of the guys I had highlighted. Feel free
Yeah,
to.
he looks. I mean, he just looks like a good bat. I mean, 2 homers, 4 doubles, 613 slugging, 439 on base. Struck out 9 times, walked 7, 3 true outcomes bat, which for those who don't know is homer, strikeout, walk. Basically, in any of those situations, it's just a given outcome. But yeah, I mean, in 9 games, he's tearing the cover off the ball. It seems like with a lot, unless you have more to say on him, actually,
I
before I
want to
start
say a
going.
little bit. I remember at least versus Mississippi State. I believe that he had a lot of good plays in the field as well. I saw he
Okay.
had an error versus Ole Miss, but to my knowledge on it, granted, I tried to suppress my memory of that game as much as I could. That he had a lot of good plays out in the field. So he's a guy who's not just going to be such a all he brings to the table is offense. Like no,
Hmm.
from my memory, if memory serves correct, he prevented a lot of things that would have been runs versus a lot of other or not runs hits versus a lot of other
Where
teams.
does he play? Was he the
Uh,
second baseman that was making all those
yeah, he's
plays?
second
Oh,
base.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Ugh. Oh, sorry. I got distracted for a second. You got to keep going.
that's all. I was going to move on to Ozzie Pratt, who's going to be their last guy. He's the
Mhm.
other half of the middle infield. So shortstop, batting 375, 452 on base, 563 slug. So not as much juice in his bat. He's got three doubles, one home run,
Mhm.
but he's one of the only guys who's drawn more walks than he is strikeouts. In fact, yeah,
Yep.
looking at this lineup, he's the only
There's
one
there's 2.
besides. Yeah,
Dre
there's
Barrett,
two out there. Yeah,
who's batting
over there in the hot
222.
corner. Yeah, so he should be somebody definitely to watch. Definitely just because he's drawn a decent amount of walks relative for this team, especially, and he's got the batting average up, so he should be just a solid bat for this team. And obviously, like I said, their middle infield made a ton of terrific plays versus Mississippi State.
Yeah,
I would expect that to continue here versus TCU.
for sure. Unless you've got more to say about Southern Miss,
Oh,
there's some big news from Fort Worth. Ben Abel, who is projected to be one of the best pitchers in the nation, big lefty for TCU, is done for this season. I
oh
believe,
man,
yep, torn UCL, so he is done. That is a massive loss for TCU. He's projected to be their ace. He was coming out of the pen last year. He's the guy I talked about a lot when I did the breakdown of TCU. He is a huge loss for them, especially pitching wise. His part of it was a big reason I expected them to be pretty good is they had him, Tommy Laporte, Cademan Parker, Trevor Baum. They have a ton of guys that can get out there and play, and to lose a guy like that this early in the season for the entire rest of the year is really, really tough.
that's a brutal pull, especially just like you said, the expectations, like we said earlier, when you bank on your bullpen, these guys filling in these roles now, not only are you not getting that production, you're also having to take production away from other areas to supplement that from there. So that's an absolutely brutal brutal loss for them.
for
But
sure.
touching on a little bit here, so Tommy Lapore, he's no
Tommy
slouch of a
Laporte
pitcher
looks
by any
really
stretch.
good.
He looked. I have his Arkansas stats versus him here.
Please,
So
yes, go ahead.
TCU versus Arkansas, that happened.
That was a good game.
And great analysis, it did happen. Um, so this one ended up going 2-1 in favor of the Woo Pigs,
Not the
but management pitching
Razorbacks, the Woo Pigs.
the Woo Pigs. Um, so it was a pitching battle.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas's Zach Root went out there. He had 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts on 81 pitches. So he had a tremendous game out there. Tommy
Mm-hmm.
Laporte's out there, and he was dealing too.
Yeah.
6 innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Sorry about that. So obviously, it's not the same level of dominance per se as Zach Root, but
Mm-hmm.
shoot, I mean, he went toe to toe with him, and actually went even a little bit longer than Zach Root did there. So
Yeah.
versus a Arkansas team that, like we said, although their bats aren't, although this team isn't necessarily known for their bats, they still
Yep.
have some tremendous talent at the plate. So I don't know. I think that's very, very promising for Tommy Laporte, especially somebody who's now going to have to take on a larger role with this team.
Absolutely. He was one of my impact transfers. He's from Wichita State, upper 90s fastball. He was their only pitcher last year, only pitcher on the staff who last year pitched more than 50 innings as a starter. He was a freshman last year and started 16 games. I mean, it's just a tough game to go out and have that kind of performance against Zach Root and Landon Beidelsheis from Arkansas. Just absolutely shut your team down. To hold a team to 2 runs and lose and pick up the loss is really, really tough. That's some Jacob deGrom stuff. Back in 2019 with the Mets, that was.
Duncan immediately going back to.
He's not Jacob deGrom. It's just the
Duncan,
stats.
are you saying that are you saying
He's
better than
literally Jacob
He's not.
deGrom, bro.
He's not Jacob DeGrom. He's better than Jacob DeGrom. My goodness.
Maybe. But continuing with TCU pitching, Cayman Parker, their Friday guy, had a bit of a rougher start to the year than Tommy Laporte. 5.23 ERA, 10 in the third innings, 13 hits, 6 earned runs, 7 runs total, 8 strikeouts to 3 walks. He's gotten hit pretty hard. 2 homers, 3 doubles, and a triple against him. Looking at their schedule, I believe.
What we leaving?
Sorry, I believe Luke's roommate just came in for a moment. But yeah, against Michigan, he had a solid game. 6 innings, 8 hits, 3 runs, no walks, 3 strikeouts, 1 hit by pitch. And that's the best competition he's faced this year. I believe it was the UCSD game.
Yeah, UCSD.
He did not
I got
play
his
very
stats
well.
pulled up from
Yeah, go
there.
ahead.
He ended the game with a 6.23 ERA, so he went 4 1/3 with 3 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 5 hits, 3 walks. So really, it seems like he just struggled a bit onto there. TCU ends up still getting the win here.
Yep.
One person I want to highlight here is Braden Sloan. Comes in out of the pen
Yes.
naturally, and he hits just in this particular game. I'm sure you have more on him, but
No
4
worries.
innings pitched, 3 hits, no earned runs, 8 strikeouts to 1 walk.
Yeah.
So he comes out of the pen, and he just absolutely makes sure that TCU maintains that number next to their name.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had 2 appearances this year, 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts, picked up a save already. Braden Sloan is a very big piece for them out of the pen. Then, speaking of their last starting pitcher, their Sunday guy, Trevor Baumler, in 1 appearance, he went 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 runs total, 1 walk, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, gave up a double and a homer. Besides that double and homer, he really didn't give up much. Able to lock down. I believe he pitched the Kansas State game, though. It was either him, it might have been Zach James, honestly. I don't have that in front of me.
I can pull it up real quick.
James has also started the game for them and had a bad day, so I'm assuming he might have been the Kansas State starter. But I would think we're going to see Baumler against SMU or USM.
Yeah, so you talking about Trevor Baumler versus
Yes.
Kansas State?
Did he
Yeah,
pitch
so
against
Trevor
Kansas
Baumler-
State?
Yeah, so he went
Okay,
4
there you go.
1/3 and allowed 3 earned runs. So once again, it's the exact same stat line that the previous pitcher had from there. So
Yeah,
1, 2, 3.
it's just it got tough for TCU when he came out of the game. Ended up giving up 10 runs total, 7 after he
And
came
man,
out.
and my thing is too is that you sit here and you look at the sheer number of pitchers that they used in this game. I
Hmm.
mean, they used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pitchers in this
8
game
pitchers, yeah.
total. Yeah, I mean, obviously at some point you got to figure they punt, but
Hmm. I mean,
man, that's still
Gianluca Shin is the guy they threw against Arkansas. He picked up an out. He didn't give up anything, but in this game he got hit pretty hard. Um, yeah, the TCU as a team is, I believe, in the D1 baseball rankings. They're down to 25 now after starting the year at
yeah. I think they're
23.
they're 25 right now.
So, and USM is, I think, 23 now. I could tell you if I scroll up
They're either
literally one
23 or 22.
page.
They're one of the two. They
Yeah,
are 22 right now.
there you go. So it's top 25 matchup. It's the lower end of the top 25, but it's still two good teams. I think this is going to be similar to what we said about the South Carolina Clemson series. This is a very good pitching series. There's a ton of talent on the mound for both of these teams, and even more so with the starters, I think, in this series. And both teams have seen very good competition. Obviously, TCU playing Michigan, Arkansas, Kansas State. Kansas State is a team that has picked up quite a few good wins recently, and obviously Arkansas is a top 5 team, and Michigan has also picked up some wins, and to get the win against Michigan was
We're
also
gonna have to
huge.
cover the Michigan Wolverines. They keep
At
coming
some
up on
point,
the
yeah,
show. It's ridiculous. They honestly, I'm gonna go ahead and if you want to keep yapping about something, I
for
will go
sure.
ahead and pull
But
up
yeah,
the
TCU
schedule.
started the season 4 games against a good UC San Diego team and swept them in 4. Allowed more than 5 runs once in that series. The Bats scored 5 or more in every game that series. I mean, besides the Arkansas and Kansas State games, they've scored 4 or more runs every game this year. The offense is showing up. The pitching is also showing up. It's just they played some really good teams. The Kansas State game, I'm surprised by how hard they got hit. It just seemed like
Mhm.
the bullpen, kind of similar to what happened with Southern Miss and Ole Miss. The pitching just kind of ran out. Like you're pitching really well, really well, really well, and then they finally got to you, and it all kind of just fell apart. But
Yeah.
these are two teams looking to bounce back after recent big losses, and I think this is going to be a really, really good series.
No, I agree entirely. I think um, it's going to be big. We can get to a little bit. I don't think we touched too much on TCU's bats, did
We
we?
have not, no.
All right, TCU. The two main guys I want to look at because one thing too is that their bats hasn't looked nearly as good as USM's has from there. A lot of strikeouts from their squad. I mean, you sit there and look at Sawyer Strohsnyder.
Yep.
Got 13 strikeouts and 29 plate appearances. I mean, that's a ton. But focusing on the positive here, Isaac Cadena over there at first base. He's looked good. He's a sophomore. Batted 333, 513 on base, 778 slug. He's got a double, a triple, and 3 home runs to go along with it. He has 8 walks and 9 strikeouts, so kind of one of the only guys on their team that's drawn, once again, more walks and strikeouts. Tell me if you've heard
Yep.
that before. Um, yeah, he looks like a solid batter. Let me see if I can get his bat up ball
Yeah,
profile.
Strohsnyder is a freshman. He's a pretty highly touted freshman as well. Obviously, he started all 5 games, or started 5 games, played in all 6.
Mhm.
A guy I want to hit on for TCU, whose stats might not jump off the page in a good way, is Anthony Silva. This was a dude who had an incredible freshman year for TCU a couple of years ago. Went through a pretty bad sophomore slump. Went from a WRC plus of 118 his freshman year to 87 his sophomore year's. WRC plus is weighted runs created plus. Plus means average is always 100. Depends on your run environment. So the park you're playing in, the pitcher you're facing, the defense you're facing, everything goes into what would an average player do. He was above average playing at the shortstop position his freshman year, below average his sophomore year, but it didn't really affect his defense. He's still a good defender. But really looking to return to that freshman form, and he's off to a really, really cold start this year. He's 3 for 21 with 9 strikeouts. he is ice cold to start the year. But this is a dude who's super talented and could really turn it up. He does already have 2 errors on the season as well, though.
Yeah. And I really want to focus on, I guess, two more guys as well for this TCU team. Cole Kramer, obviously, second base. He's a senior there, batting
Mm-hmm.
290, 378 on base, 581 slug. Striking out a little bit heavy. Looking at him, produces a pretty even batted ball profile. But really, one player I want to hit on here is Noah Franco over there at
Mm-hmm.
DH. His stats initially, when you're sitting here looking at them, they don't really jump off the page. Batting 241, 389 slug, 480 or 389 on base, 483 slug. Right. He's got 7 walks and 12 strikeouts. He's got 2 home runs on the season and a double. But
Mm-hmm.
if you look over his batted ball profile, 52.9% ground ball with 29.4% line drive rate.
Oh.
So yeah, he's hitting the ball. It's line drive rate. It's pretty doggone high. And then
Mm-hmm.
fly ball, he's not hitting many of those. Only 17% of his balls are going for a fly ball, but 66% of those have gone for a home run.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things. And if my
Yeah.
math is right there, he's only hit what three proper fly balls all season now.
Yeah, and he has 2 homers on that. He's another freshman bat. Stroh and Franco. He was also Franco was a very very highly touted freshman, the number 7 prospect nationally by Perfect Game, number 14 by Baseball America. Super talented guy, listed as a left hand pitcher and first baseman. Um, Went to IMG, so if you know anything about high school sports, you
Yeah.
know who IMG Academy is. Um, yeah, it's a talented team. It's We'll see how it all pans out. Kramer, who you mentioned, transferring from Washington State this year. He's a senior. He's really only played 1 full season though. A big note I had about this team when I did the breakdown on them is that they might not have that much pop.
Mhm.
No player hit more than 9 homers last year. They had quite a few guys. I believe it was Kramer, Sam Myers. Um, Both of them hit more doubles than homers, and they had high slugging. Preston Gamster was another guy, JUCO transfer that I mentioned. Stole a bunch of bases, can play anywhere in the infield. But this team is not lacking pop to start the year. I mean, we're talking 4 guys, 5 guys with multiple
Yeah.
homers.
Yeah, we're talking. I mean, three. He's already on pace to. He's already a third of the way there. To
Yeah,
you know,
already. I mean, this is a team that is. We'll see how this pans out. It's very similar to Southern Miss in that
it's
they're
it's
striking
sim.
out. But go ahead, go
Yeah,
ahead.
exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's similar in the notion that they're not drawing as many walks.
Yeah.
They're striking out a lot, not drawing as many walks. I will say I feel like Southern Miss's bats are a little bit more mature at this
Yeah.
moment than TCU's for sure. I think TCU, they by the end of the season they could really have these guys turn around, like you said. Soros Snyder coming in really highly touted. Noah Franco, I think looking at the batted ball profile is very
Mm-hmm.
good signs. I think
Yeah.
that he's going to be somebody towards the tail end of the season that we're going to be looking at, and he's going to be a big part of this batting order for TCU. I just don't think that this is the series they put it together, especially versus USM and how strong their pitching is.
Yeah.
I have a hard time imagining that Noah Franco and Sorge Strohsider are really going to come out there and break on out versus a team that has such a talented pitching staff like Southern Miss.
Yeah. A team that shut out a talented Mississippi State lineup. I mean, I know we love Mississippi State, and all the crap we talk about them comes from a place of love, but that's a talented team. It's a
Mm-hmm.
talented lineup. And I would say it's a little more talented and at least a little more experienced than this TCU lineup. I mean, 2 true freshmen in there is always interesting, but Southern Miss's pitching is very, very good. That is a
Yeah,
massive reason why they are as high ranked as they are.
and in my opinion, I think this one, would likely be the only reason I'm leaning heavily USM. Like we said,
Mm-hmm.
I think the only way USM sweep is initially what I came to mind for
Mm.
me for this. However, I think given the fact that if USM wins those first 2 games, I'm not
Yeah.
saying they punt on Sunday, but I'm saying they might punt on Sunday. Um, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
just looking at it from there, I think USM likely will get 2 games here.
Hmm.
I just think their pitching. I'm very high on USM's pitching, and I could look like a fool by the end of the season or by the end of the series. And like I said, who knows? Maybe these guys are going to come out and they just smoke some home runs versus them. But I really do like USM's pitching. I'm pretty high on them. I think
Yeah.
they just have multiple guys who are both starters and can come out of the bullpen and shut them down. And just
Hmm.
like I said, given the fact of the lack of maturation from a lot of these bats here,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you. I don't think I would go USM sweep. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would lean towards USM winning the series though. Um, their pitching is just that good. I mean, obviously TCU's pitching is good. It's similar to the South Carolina Clemson series. I think it's not. It's not going to. Even if it was a sweep, it wouldn't be 3 blowouts. I don't think there's
Oh
going to
no
be
no
any
no.
blowouts. These are going to be close games. This is why we're talking about these series. These are close games. These are good series, competitive series, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say too is that, like I said, USM relies so heavily on the long ball. So let's say Tommy Laporte comes out there and he shoves. He absolutely shoves. USM can't get the ball past 300 feet, 200 feet. Nonetheless, they're taking a
Mm-hmm.
yard. I mean, that's easily just a way that TCU could come out and take one of these games,
Yeah.
for sure. And so it's going to be one of those things that USM is so, like I said, they rely a ton on power that, you know, if a pitcher like is just having a great day for TCU, a team like USM could really, really struggle.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
I don't know. I can go back and see here. I mean, Ole Miss they didn't really have an overpowering pitching performance. I guess they didn't really need to, but that'd be one of the only like I guess Achilles heels I see for Southern Miss in this
Mm-hmm.
series. I can imagine that coming back to bite them is that if they can't manufacture runs outside of the long ball, they may struggle a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean that can be a problem. It looks like with both of these teams.
Mm.
And it's an when we look deeper into the season, we start talking about postseason play and playing, the best teams in the nation. Um, that can be a real problem when you face pitching that is, Arkansas, and you only score 1 run. Um, you hold them to 2, but you can only score 1. It doesn't matter what you hold them to if you can't score. So it'll be interesting to see how these offenses get going, if they get going at all.
Oh, for sure.
All
Okay, well
right.
that's pretty much all we have on the USMTCU game.
And now
Their
we
series, sorry.
can. We're not going to do a super deep breakdown of the Astros Foundation College Classic. We're going to do a bit higher level of an overview. But this is a very big tournament early in the season. We've got 6 teams: Rice, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. So we're talking about 5 teams that were ranked at one point, 3 teams that are ranked right now, 3 very good SEC teams, and 2 of the best teams in the nation. With the number 1 team there in Texas A&M, and I think Tennessee's number 3. So
Yeah, I seeing Tennessee and A&M. That was like immediately. My mouth was I was literally drool. I was like I could not wait to see that matchup, and it was unfortunate they don't play each other. I understand why,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
none of the
really I
SEC
was
teams play
really
each
really
other.
hoping. Yeah, so this is a tournament with a lot on the line for a lot of different teams for a lot of different reasons. I think
Hmm.
really the only ones that don't have a ton of outside pressure on them are going to be Tennessee and Rice. I
Yeah,
think all the rest of them come into this tournament with a ton to prove. Not a ton to prove, but at least something to prove. Some of them
yeah,
have a lot to prove. Some of them have a little bit to prove. Uh, Obviously, we can touch a little bit onto, I guess, each team from there. Oklahoma State and Arizona are in very similar spots. Started off
yes,
the season in the top 25. They recently slipped out of the top 25.
hmm,
Both teams are going to have a chance to play. So Oklahoma State, they're going versus Tennessee. They're going up versus A&M, and they ended up versus Mississippi State. Arizona, they're going up A&M, Mississippi State, and Arizona. Same exact schedule.
Tennessee.
It. Oh, sorry, my bad.
They're not
Did I
playing
say Arizona
themselves.
versus
Yeah,
Arizona?
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was reading through here. My dyslexia kicked in.
You're good.
So, anyways, they're playing the exact same schedules here. These are
Hmm.
teams with a ton to prove. Start of the season, top 25, and if they can get it out of this weekend, with a win or two, they would feel fantastic, especially if they could get out of those 2 wins.
Oh
Both
my
teams are feeling
gosh.
fantastic. That would be huge, huge, huge for them.
Yeah.
Even just one win would be tremendous for them. Hopefully, it doesn't come versus Mississippi State for either of them.
Yeah.
But
I do want to touch
I
on Rice real quick.
for sure go ahead.
You might look at Rice and go, they're not ranked. They're 2-5. Why is this team here? Well, their season so far: 10-6 loss to Villanova, 5-2 loss to Michigan. They got blanked 7-0 by former number 2 Virginia. They beat Sam Houston. They lost 7-4 against USC in 11 innings. They beat USC 4-3, and then they just lost to Arizona 11-8. So this is a team that has had a very, very tough schedule to start the year, and it doesn't get any easier. Friday, Mississippi State; Saturday, Tennessee; Sunday, Texas A&M. I mean, if Rice can pull a win out of this, they're on top of the world.
Oh, Cloud Nine.
They are very happy. I mean, it's a really, really tough start to the year for Rice, and you can't even be mad with with the games they've lost. Like, you're going in there and playing some big programs, and they're gonna have to keep doing it. We should mention real quick before I forget, one of my notes. This tournament is going to be live on the Astros YouTube channel apparently, so we can watch it. We can actually
Yeah,
all watch the tournament. It's going to be nice, but
that'd be nice. I don't have to tell my kidney to watch it.
for sure. But Tennessee is another team, like you mentioned. They don't have a ton to prove. They haven't really played great competition to start the year. However, they should go 3-0 this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma State is, in my opinion, the biggest test out of the
Yes,
non-SEC teams. That's
fighting
not a
Wake
diss to
Forest.
Arizona, but Oklahoma State is a talented program. The Cowboys are good, and not Dallas, Oklahoma State. But
Ezekiel Elliott.
oh my goodness, Ezekiel Elliott playing center.
He will get re-signed by the Cowboys and rush for 4,000
He
yards.
will.
Book it now.
But Tennessee is just, they're looking to just go out there and say, hey, we're just gonna win these. We're just gonna win games. We haven't lost yet.
Sure.
I don't believe, like, they've just beat the crap out of everybody they played so far.
Yeah,
Do they have something
haven't
to
played
prove?
anybody. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, they haven't played anybody big yet. And do they have something to prove? It's like, hey, this is our first test at all this year. We have to go out there and prove that we are, in their minds, the best team in the nation. Especially considering Texas A&M is coming off 2 losses.
That's what I really want to hit on here: the Cal Poly and Texas State losses,
Yeah.
all alongside losing their All-American third baseman.
Yep.
This is a game that this is going to be a tournament that A&M's going to have to come out here and really. I don't want to say it's hard to ever say that a team who's ranked as highly as them has something to prove, especially in a tournament like this. But as close to having something to prove as a team at this rank can be, just given the fact that this is a new man, there's a new coach.
Mm-hmm.
They're going off 2 losses. How is this team going to rebound? Okay, how is this team going to rebound from losing somebody who's supposed to be one of their best players?
Yep.
Are they going to rebound well? They're not going to rebound. This is going to crumble. I mean, this program being tested early in the
Mm-hmm.
season. Both mostly in just the mental portions of the game. Obviously, losing your All-American third baseman is a big blow production-wise, but as far as mentality goes, is this going to be a rollover and die team, or is this going to be a moment where they could sit there and say, "Hey, look, us versus everyone, backs against the wall, wounded animal," and just, "Hey, look, we're going to go out there, take this one game at a time."
Yeah, for sure. You do love seeing, for if you're a Texas A&M fan, you like seeing Arizona and Oklahoma State Friday, Saturday. So you can go out there
Mm-hmm.
and you can throw Prager, you can throw Patton or Lampkin or whoever they're starting Saturdays. But you get your 2 best starters out there against your 2 best opponents. Love to see that. If you're a Texas A&M fan, that is a big thing for you. I'm sure they're going to want a lot out of their pitching in these 2 games. I mean, they haven't lost on Friday or Saturday yet. Their losses have come in a midweek and a Sunday. In a Sunday where they had already won the series.
Mm-hmm.
But It's wild to think about. This is a team that was preseason number 1, and no disrespect to the other teams up there, it wasn't close.
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M is and was that good. Um, and they're still number 1 after losing 2 games. If you're Tennessee, you're looking at that and going, why aren't we? Like, why are we 3? The 2 teams
Yeah.
above us have lost games. Why does D1 base? Why are we 3rd? We're undefeated. We get that the competition's not great, but they're going to go out and say, "Hey, if we go 3-0 and Texas A&M loses a game or even is close,
Mm-hmm.
man, Tennessee fans have a case."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I think so. 100%. This is if Texas A&M wants to keep that number one next to their name, they're gonna have to go out here and sweep in a dominant fashion.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh
just
yes.
because so many other, especially LSU beating Dallas Baptist last night.
Mm-hmm.
Number 19 that bolsters case that LSU sitting at number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's one of those things that A&M for a number one team coming in. This is the most a number one team could possibly have riding on one Friday, Saturday, Sunday stretch for sure.
Yep. Um, Oklahoma State is. I talked about, I think, 3 of these teams in my breakdowns, and then obviously we're Mississippi State fans, so I have pretty decent knowledge of 4 of these teams,
Mm-hmm.
or 5 even.
Duncan's familiar with their game.
I
That's
am
for
familiar
sure.
with their game. Besides Rice, I'm pretty familiar with all of these teams. Oklahoma State, a big thing for them was there's 3 freshmen coming in that need to show up for them. Ethan Lund, and then Thompson and Shull, elite freshmen. They transferred in a lot of pitching. Harrison Bodendorf and Mario Pesha. And then Gabe Davis is one of the better closers, one of the better back end relievers in the nation. And then Nolan Schubart is their big guy. He's one of the best outfielders in the nation. 194 WRC plus last year. Like, monster bat. He's gonna need to show up against these teams. But then you look at the pitchers he's gonna be facing. Is What's the name of the Tennessee pitcher? Is it Doyle? Is that his name? Liam Doyle?
Yeah, Liam Doyle, and
Yeah.
that's one guy I really want to touch on here. Liam Doyle has looked
Mm-hmm.
outstanding. He was one of the guys that I was very high on coming into the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's looked outstanding. Not only on top of that, Marcus Phillips for Tennessee has also
Mm-hmm.
looked just as outstanding from there. Looking at, I mean, Liam Doyle, he's let up 1 run across 10 1/3 innings, and looking at Marcus Phillips, he has let up 1 earned run across 8 2/3 innings.
Yeah.
So both of these guys have shown up in a big way for Tennessee. Like we said, their competition level isn't what a lot of the other teams. They aren't like Mississippi State or USM who played multiple top 25 teams, but
Mm-hmm.
the teams they are playing, they've gone out there and they've done very well against. So this Tennessee pitching staff is going to be really tested this weekend. But I honestly think they are good enough to take that test.
Yeah, for sure. If you're Oklahoma State, you really do hate coming out there and facing Liam Doyle on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
That's really tough to draw. I mean, let's be honest here. You don't want to face any of the 3 SEC Friday starters. We're talking about Ryan Prager, Liam Doyle, and Pico Khan. All 3 guys have gotten off to very hot starts. Like, Prager touted as one of the best pitchers in the nation. Doyle and Khan off to incredible starts. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it is a really tough draw for these non SEC teams across the
Oh,
board. Yeah, go ahead.
and just to really highlight Liam Doyle here, 10 2/3. So obviously that's what 31 possible outs.
Hmm.
So, would you like to guess how many of those came by way of the K?
Oh, I know he has like 20 something. It's like 23, 24.
25 strikeouts, 75.8%
Woo!
K rate. So I mean, this guy he is striking them out like nobody's business. He
Mm.
still has a negative 2.15 Sierra despite having
Jeez
pitched a good amount of
Louise.
innings already. Obviously, it's still only 10 innings, so don't
Yeah.
you know whatever. But I mean, 75.8
Still,
percent of
man.
his strikeout rate is preposterous.
Oh, yeah. Um, if we want to go ahead and get into Arizona, real quick.
Mm.
They similar to Oklahoma State. They've got a ton to prove. This like I said, this is a team that I broke down early, in our preseason preview. And yeah, it's pretty much the guys that I mentioned are playing very well for them. Their bats are really showing up. They have 7 guys that have started majority of the games that are over 300 batting average. I mean, it is very impressive. I'm going to rattle off some names here that I talked about to start the season. I was very impressed with their bats. Mason White, he's slashing 300, 400, 600 with 2 homers already to start the year. Elite shortstop for them. Garen Caulfield, 303, 351, 455. Second baseman, on base guy, but he struck out a bit. Mason White also struck out 11 times. But for Caulfield, you'd expect the on base to go up a bit, but he's a reliable veteran player. Brendan Summerhill has played really well. One of the better outfielders in college baseball, according to D1 Baseball. Started all 8 games, slashing 353, 436, 647 with a homer and 3 triples. I don't know if they have a triples alley out there in Arizona, but he is playing very well. Walked more than he struck out, 5-4. And then Aaron Walton, one of my impact transfers to them, has been their best bat to start the year. Slashing 417, 611, 625 with a homer and 2 doubles. I believe he's already been hit by pitches 6 times.
He's been hit by 6 pitches.
Which actually tracks. One of my notes on him was that he got hit by 12 pitches last year. So he's on pace to do way more than that. But he had 15 stolen bases last year, didn't get caught once. He's 4 out of 5 to start the year. I mean, the bats for Arizona are what's showing up. The pitching is
great heavens! I just scrolled down and saw the pitching for the first time.
It's a bit rough. They didn't really return any starting pitching. Michael Hilker was a JUCO transfer I wanted to mention. I mentioned who at Wisconsin Whitewater struck out 119 guys and only walked 18. He's got a 36 ERA in 2 innings pitched in 2 appearances. Bailey Smith has been really good for them. 2 starts.
Bailey Smith's been excellent for them.
Or Smith Bailey, sorry. Bailey Smith is a name that makes sense. Smith Bailey is. Yeah. But yeah, 9 innings, 6 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, has not allowed a run yet. He's been pitching very well for them. I mean,
it's so looking at Arizona, it really looks like they got 4 really, really good starting pitchers and such. I know Owen Kronkowski, I think that he came in versus that Clemson game, and I think he got shelled there.
Yeah.
Which is why that. But it just seems like, the depth of this bullpen, of this rotation, may not be its strong suit, but it seems like the guys who are coming out there really getting the starts are eating up a lot of innings. Yeah. It seems like they're being effective. It just seems that, towards the back end of the bullpen, that, hey, once you get into some mid-relief guys and stuff, it gets a little questionable onto there. And granted, like I said, it seems very much like a pitch-by-committee approach.
Yes.
Just because given the fact that, the difference between the amount of pitches pitched by the second and most and the fourth most is 2/3 of an inning. Mm-hmm. Similar gap between number 5 and number 7. Mm-hmm. It's literally 1/3 of an inning. So it's one of those things that this is a team that's thrown a ton of pitchers. Some of them have sunk. Some of them swum, whatever you want to say there.
One of those is right.
Swum is something I just made up, so it's definitely not that one. But
whatever. I had a moment there of really? Is that not a word? That's not good. But yeah, you're completely right. I mean, I keep going back to my notes from the start of the season, but this is an underrated team if the pitching works, and it seems like Casey Hintz. In 2 appearances, he's pitched 7 2/3, only allowed 1 run, struck out 7 guys. It appears the 1 run he allowed was a solo shot. Colin McKinney, 2 starts, 7 in the third, only allowed a run so far. Owen Kromkowski, like you mentioned, has not played as well. I mean, it seems like I would assume Smith Bailey and Colin McKinney are the Friday Saturday guys. I would think, but this Arizona team, if you look at the schedule, they went 0-3 to start the year. They lost 2-1 to Arizona, which is apparently or to Arizona to Ole Miss. I did the same thing you did. They played themselves.
Yeah, they played themselves. The
But,
scrimmage.
but yeah, they lost 2-1 to Ole Miss, which is the first time Ole Miss has come up in this series. It seems like, and it wasn't a 15-run game for Ole Miss. They lost 16-5 against Clemson and 13-1 against Louisville. So they got absolutely shelled to start the year. Then they pull back 7-inning shutouts against New Mexico and San Diego and UCSD. They swept UCSD in 3 games. They just beat Rice 11-8. In those 5 games since their 0-3 start, what do you think their lowest score was? What do you think the least?
I'm sorry,
score
I've been
was?
looking up the swam thing. Can I go a little bit on a tangent of that? So apparently, swam it's the past participle.
Oh, English language,
Of
everyone.
Yeah. So and I'm looking at it here is that although it can be used, it has fallen out of style within the past few centuries.
A few
So
centuries.
it is not something that we would
It's
like
still
to.
correct though.
It is the
Technically,
past participle. I don't know in that
what is
context.
a
It's the past
participle?
participle. I was really hoping that you knew that. We were showing off our Mississippi State education here. Um,
I
yeah,
didn't take
I
one
went to.
English class when I was in state. I got that done before I got there.
I went through. Yeah, I went through the public education system in the state of Mississippi. I think I did pass
Hmm.
the next one.
Yeah.
Damn, dude, I've fallen off since I've taken the ACT.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I had a fall off, generational fall off. Could you repeat the question for me? That
Yeah. If you
boy,
give
I'm
me
not listening
2 seconds,
to grammar cast.
uh, what do you think their average runs scored is in those in 5 games? They've won all 5 against New
Arizona.
Mexico. Yeah, against New Mexico, 3 games against UCSD, and then Rice.
I think it's probably because I did look at their schedule a bit, and it seemed like they all were double digit. I'd probably go like a 10, 11, somewhere in that
Yeah, they're
ballpark.
averaging 10 runs. They're
Yeah,
averaging
and
nine
it's
8. Their lowest scoring game was UCSD, where they won 5-4, and then the next game they won 12-6. So I
I
mean,
saw they just recently played Rice and won 11-8.
yeah,
So it's going to be an interesting thing that they play Rice right before this tournament, literally the game before this tournament.
yeah,
So
they will not play Rice in this tournament. They will see Ryan Prager, Carson Ligon, and then Tennessee's Sunday starter. So
yeah, Tennessee, their Sunday guy. I think that one was one of those ones that was still a little bit kind of up in
iffy.
the air. Let me see if they've
Yeah.
established one. So yeah, it looks like AJ Russell and Nate Snead, Brandon Arvidsson. He's made a few starts. But
Mm-hmm.
he's only gone two, or I guess 2 starts in 5 innings.
Mm-hmm.
So I would bet either probably Nate Snead was going to be their Sunday guy.
Yeah, I mean, this tournament has a ton of implications for a ton of teams, and we haven't talked about Mississippi State yet. Um, this is a Mississippi State team that has looked good in the weekend series for the most part. Offense has been shaky. Um, and then in the 2 games against the best 2 teams we played this year, um, have not been great. It was Southern Miss and Troy. For those of you who didn't listen to our 45-minute rant yesterday
Yeah, if
about
you
them.
guys didn't hear me do
Yeah,
just bang
yeah,
my fist on the table 58 times in between each syllable.
yeah.
Uh, this is a big weekend for Mississippi State because they're going to be playing high quality teams that were just in the top 25.
Mhm.
Mississippi State has to prove they can win versus teams highly ranked teams. It's much easier to beat up on Manhattan and Missouri State, but
Mhm.
whenever they played USM, when they played Troy, they just can't seem to get it done. If
Mhm.
Mississippi State wants to come out here and establish themselves as legitimate, like, hey, we're back, we're Mississippi State, we're ready to make some serious noise. They're gonna have to win this. They're gonna have to win bare minimum 2 games, likely 3.
Mhm.
Um, if they come out here and go 1-2, in my opinion, Mississippi State's likely going to fall out of the top 25.
Oh yeah,
I think it
I'm
would
with you.
be if if they stayed in, they would have to be 24-25, and that would be assuming
Hmm.
that a few other teams and they're just also had bad weekends to go alongside of it.
Yep.
Like Duke, for instance, Duke's not had a great week. They that it would have to take more things like that for Mississippi State to maintain it. It's going to be one of those things that they've got to establish their ability to win versus talented teams. This is going to be their biggest opportunity to do so, and not only to
Yeah.
mention that is that it gets a little hairy, like we said, versus USM. USM has to play Mississippi State immediately after they play top 25 TCU.
Hmm.
Mississippi State also has to play USM
Yeah.
after they hop out of this
It's the
tournament.
same thing.
It's it's equally bad, except one thing here is that USM, if they're in the position where they have two wins and they decide, hey, screw Sunday, we don't really care about it too much,
Hmm.
they can throw out their best arms there. Mississippi State is not in a spot to afford. They
We play
cannot afford.
Oklahoma State Sunday.
They're playing Oklahoma State, so even if they go out and get two wins, one of them's Rice and then one of them's Arizona, they need that Oklahoma State win.
Yeah.
So what's Mississippi State? They put themselves in a terrible position from pitching perspective here
Hmm.
as to who they're going to be able to throw on Sunday versus the Tuesday game. In my mind, it's going to be likely Stone Simmons on the bump for
They've
Sunday.
actually released the rotation. It's Con, Liggins, Simmons.
Simmons, okay, and so
Hmm.
that means that Jacob Pruitt's likely going to be the Tuesday
Yes,
guy
which
from there.
which is
Uh,
which was a bright spot against Troy. Why he got pulled, we ranted about that enough yesterday. But
for sure.
this is
So, okay.
it's a very big game on a Sunday. We've got, I mean, three big games right in a row, pretty much, with one day off on Monday, and it's at least the Southern Miss game is in Starkville. That didn't matter when we played Troy, though. So
Yeah. Uh, I will say this
it's a big
too.
series. Yeah, go ahead.
Mississippi State tends to really struggle when they go play in professional ballparks.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a trend that you've noticed. When they go
yeah.
out and play in like I don't know what it is. Anytime they go out there and they play uh, Pearl, they seem to struggle a
Mm-hmm.
bit. Anytime they play, the Shuckers down in Biloxi, that
Mm-hmm.
stadium. Uh, the past few years, they haven't really played the most talented teams in the world. So, whatever. I think Hoover is more of like a pro style
Yeah,
field. If I'm not mistaken, they just really seem to struggle whenever it comes down to playing in pro fields. Uh, I know that that's a very silly thing to make, but as fans of the team, this is a pattern that we've routinely seen. So
mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping that does not continue because, like I said, Mississippi State cannot afford to lose these games.
Yeah,
They're
and
in wounded animal do or die mode at this point.
yeah, and honestly, I mean, another thing with the Oklahoma State game is I could see Oklahoma State getting in real hot water against Tennessee and Texas A&M, and having to pretty much punt. If Tennessee's offense shows up like we know Tennessee's offense can show up, and they get after Oklahoma State's pitching early, that's a tough game. And if you're Oklahoma State, you know you've got the Mississippi State game on Sunday that, in all reality, is probably your most winnable game. I mean, I know
Oh,
Texas A&M just lost two games. Texas A&M is still number one for a very, very good reason.
mm,
And you're facing their Saturday starter, who I don't think has lost yet. And if I'm Oklahoma State, I'm circling that Mississippi State game and being like, if we're going to win one this weekend, this is our best chance, and we got to win it. I mean, and if you're State, you look at it as well and go, yeah, we can't just punt against Rice and Arizona. Of course, we need to win those games, but I mean, Arizona's offense has been so good. It's just like you don't want to get into a shootout against them, and Ligon hasn't gone deep.
no, Ligon
So,
has not gone deep. He was a guy who's a Miami Friday guy a few years
mhm.
ago, but we have not seen him. He's been much more of a reliever role this year. Obviously, to step into the Saturday role, but
Mhm.
he hasn't not gone deep at all into this year. And I think one thing is too looking at Oklahoma State's schedule. They don't have that top 25 matchup on Tuesday. They have to play Winthrop. They
Who
so
South Carolina beat the crap out of.
yeah. So this is a team that Oklahoma State, they're going all in.
Oh yeah,
They're going all in.
yeah.
They have to prove it. Mississippi State has to prove it. That Sunday game is going to be one to watch for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
That one
2:05
obviously, like I
p.m.
said, Oklahoma State pretty much all their games are going to be to watch. But Mississippi State, Oklahoma State is going to be both teams need that win bad, 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 bad. So
Yeah. Yeah. it's just going to be. It looks like Rice has actually played in this tournament since it started.
I think they're kind of a mainstay since
Where
Texas
is
early.
Rice?
I
I
think
just realized that I don't know this.
I think
They're
it's
in Texas. They
just
might
outside.
be in Houston.
No, I was just gonna say I'm almost positive
That
that
would
I
make
know
perfect
they're in
sense.
Texas. Yeah, they're in Houston.
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense why Rice is there. Then I was a little confused. I'll admit. Um, in 2016, Rice and Houston were in the tournament. Same in 2019. Either way. Oh, actually, I found a tournament where Rice wasn't there in 2018 for some and 17.
Whoa,
What
what you?
happened?
Whoa! You want to get some notable alumni for Rice?
Oh, I feel like I should know at least. Is it like, are we talking sports
There's
here, or are we talking?
no. This is in general. He shares the name. Part of his name is of a former U.S. president.
Oh Lord. I have no clue. I
Duncan, you ignorant swine.
Who is
Didn't
it?
even know what SWAM was. Robert Woodrow Wilson is an American astronomer who
Oh,
discovered cosmic microwave background radiation in 1964, and they won a 1978 Nobel Prize in Physics. I cannot
so
believe.
when you said shares part of his name is just Robert Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, no, it's Robert Woodrow Wilson. He's an
That's
American
not.
astronomer.
That's insane. All right.
Yeah, nice to work.
Yeah, I never would have ever got that. I know who Woodrow Wilson is. I did not know Robert
I would
Woodrow
sure hope you
Wilson.
know who Woodrow Wilson is.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Back to baseball. This is a huge tournament. I mean, we're talking about a number one team with things to prove, a number three team that really thinks they have a good case to be number one if they sweep this weekend, the number 18 team who hasn't been able to show up against good competition yet this year with a ton to prove. Two teams that just dropped out of the top 25 in the past 2 weeks with a ton to prove. And then Rice, who's played some really tough teams and put up a fight. So it's gonna be 9 great baseball games. I mean, we could see a couple blowouts here. That absolutely could happen, but this is gonna be the tournament to watch this weekend.
Duncan, it sounds like you're sounding off from there. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you another shot here.
Okay.
Guess another Rice alumni.
Oh Lord.
Shares the name of another former U.S. president.
How long ago was this U.S. president?
Not terribly long.
Ooh. Are we talking to a Bush here? Is that where we're going? I know they're from Texas. Are we talking George Bush?
George P. Bush,
George P.
attorney and
Bush.
former attorney and former Texas Land Commissioner George Prescott Bush.
Dude, I didn't know George P. existed. I knew GW, and obviously George Bush, but
Yeah, George H.W.
HW and W. That
Yeah,
is
okay.
that
I
is
think
hilarious.
after this ends, I will be doing a thorough
Thorough investigation of Rice alumni.
Howard Hughes went there. That's a
Oh,
big name. That's
yeah.
an inspiration for Mr. House following in Vegas.
Yeah. That is Luke's favorite game for those of you who are interested.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think we could probably wrap it up now. Just a quick recap. Let's go through, just rattle off predictions. Southern Miss TCU, you had Southern Miss winning at least 2 games, potentially sweeping,
Yep.
depending how Sunday goes. I'm with you. I think Southern Miss wins that series 2-1. All going to be close games. Then, oh my goodness, South Carolina, Clemson. I have Clemson winning 2 out of 3 there. I would assume they're going to win Saturday. Aiden Knack starting at home. I think it's going to be big for them. What do you think about that?
For the
For Clemson, South Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like you said, I'm definitely leaning Clemson onto that game. Given the fact it's a rivalry game, I certainly don't think that South Carolina is going to be swept on from there.
Yeah. And then as far as the tournament goes, I don't even want to even try to predict records. My one prediction, and this is me being a hater, I think Rice is going 0-3. Um,
Again.
they're playing some real tough
Dude,
teams.
George Prescott Bush
Um,
will likely be there. You understand
I
that,
will
right?
be
And you're just
receiving
gonna,
a call from the Bush family, but
buddy, they don't call.
but Arizona and Oklahoma State, if they pick up a win, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. Um, and we'll just have to see with the SEC teams how that all goes. Tennessee hasn't really played anybody yet. State hasn't been able to beat the good teams. Texas A&M's coming off 2 losses against teams they should have beat. So maybe Rice will pick up a win against Texas A&M. That would be something.
Mhm.
But yeah, I believe that's all we've got for today. Unless you've got anything else for us.
I reckon that's it.
All right. So if you got anything for us, know anything about these teams, got anything to say, any notes for us, just advice, information, anything like that, please leave it in the comments below. Constructive criticism is usually better, but if you hate what we said about your team, please comment. It makes for good engagement on the videos, and I appreciate that. But like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and have a great day.